Question 1. Personal auto policy. Mr. Rodriguez resides in Connecticut and has just purchased a new vehicle. He is unsure about the coverage options under Part D of the personal auto policy. Which of the following scenarios correctly describes coverage under Part D? A. Coverage includes damage to Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle caused by wear and tear. B. Coverage applies to Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle when it is used for ride-sharing services like Uber or Lyft. C. Coverage extends to Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle when it is damaged in a collision with an animal. D. Coverage excludes Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle when it is driven by a family member not listed on the policy. Correct answer. C. Coverage extends to Mr. Rodriguez's vehicle when it is damaged in a collision with an animal. Explanation. Part D of the personal auto policy covers a coverage for damage to your auto. This includes collision coverage for damage to the insured vehicle caused by a collision with another object or overturn of the vehicle. Collisions with animals are typically covered under comprehensive coverage, Part D, as they are not considered a collision with another vehicle. Options A and D are incorrect because wear and tear and unlisted drivers are generally excluded unless specified otherwise in the policy. Option B is incorrect because ride-sharing is usually excluded under personal auto policies unless an endorsement or specific coverage is added. Question 2. Homeowners insurance MS. Campbell owns a home in Connecticut and is reviewing her homeowners insurance policy. Which statement accurately describes the coverage C part of her policy? A. Coverage C provides liability coverage for injuries sustained by guests in MS. Campbell's home. B. Coverage C insures the dwelling against physical damage from perils like fire or windstorm. C. Coverage C covers MS. Campbell's personal property such as furniture and clothing against specified perils. D. Coverage C reimburses MS. Campbell for additional living expenses if her home becomes uninhabitable due to a covered loss. Correct answer. C. Coverage C covers MS. Campbell's personal property such as furniture and clothing against specified perils. Explanation. Coverage C of a homeowner's insurance policy covers personal property located anywhere in the world against specified perils such as fire, theft, vandalism, and more. Option A is incorrect as liability coverage for injuries to guests is typically covered under Coverage E. Option B describes Coverage A, which insures the dwelling itself. Option D refers to Coverage D, which provides coverage for additional living expenses if the insured residence becomes uninhabitable due to a covered loss. Question 3. Scenario-based question. Mrs. Parker, a resident of Connecticut, has a personal umbrella policy to supplement her existing insurance coverage. Recently, she was involved in a car accident where the damages exceeded her underlying auto insurance limits. Which statement best describes the role of Mrs. Parker's personal umbrella policy in this situation? A. The PUP will cover all damages resulting from the accident, regardless of the underlying policy limits. B. The PUP will only cover damages that are excluded under the underlying auto insurance policy. C. The PUP will provide additional liability coverage once the limits of the underlying auto insurance policy are exhausted. D. The PUP will cover Mrs. Parker's medical expenses resulting from the accident, regardless of fault. Correct answer. C. The PUP will provide additional liability coverage once the limits of the underlying auto insurance policy are exhausted. Explanation. A personal umbrella policy provides excess liability coverage above the limits of the insured's underlying primary policies, such as auto or homeowners insurance. It does not cover all damages indiscriminately, Option A, but rather extends coverage once the underlying policy limits are exhausted. Option B is incorrect as PUPs do not typically cover exclusions of the underlying policy. Option D is incorrect as PUPs generally do not cover personal medical expenses. Those would typically be covered by medical payments coverage under an auto policy. These questions are designed to test a candidate's understanding of specific insurance concepts and their applications under Connecticut insurance regulations. Each correct answer is supported by relevant insurance principles and policies applicable in the state. Question 4. Homeowners insurance. Mr. Thompson owns a home in Connecticut and is considering purchasing a homeowners insurance policy. Which statement accurately describes Coverage E of the policy? A. Coverage E provides coverage for additional living expenses if Mr. Thompson's home becomes uninhabitable due to a covered loss. B. Coverage E covers Mr. Thompson's personal property such as furniture and clothing against specified perils. C. Coverage E provides liability coverage for injuries sustained by guests in Mr. Thompson's home. D. Coverage E insures the dwelling against physical damage from perils like fire or windstorm. Correct answer A. Coverage E provides coverage for additional living expenses if Mr. Thompson's home becomes uninhabitable due to a covered loss. Explanation: Coverage E of a homeowner's insurance policy is known as additional living expenses. It covers the necessary increase in living expenses when the insured residence is damaged by a covered peril to the extent that the insured cannot live there while repairs are being made. Option B describes Coverage C, which covers personal property. Option C describes Coverage E under personal liability. Option D describes Coverage A, which insures the dwelling itself. Question 5. Personal Auto Policy PAP MS. Garcia has a personal auto policy PAP in Connecticut. Which scenario illustrates a situation where her liability coverage, Part A, would apply? A. Miss Garcia's car is damaged by a hailstorm while parked in her garage. B. MS. Garcia's car is stolen from her driveway and later recovered. C. MS. Garcia is at fault in an accident and damages another driver's vehicle. D. MS. Garcia's car breaks down due to mechanical failure on the highway. Correct answer: C. Miss Garcia is at fault in an accident and damages another driver's vehicle. Explanation: Part A of the Personal Auto Policy PAP covers liability coverage. It provides coverage for bodily injury and property damage liability arising out of the use of a covered vehicle. Option A describes comprehensive coverage, Part D. Option B would typically involve comprehensive or possibly collision coverage, Part D. Option D is not covered under liability but might fall under other parts of the PAP, depending on the specifics of the policy. Question 6. Personal Umbrella Policy. Mr. Davis has a personal umbrella policy PUP in Connecticut. Which statement best describes the purpose of a PUP? A PUP is designed to provide primary coverage for all personal insurance needs. B. A PUP extends coverage for perils not covered under underlying insurance policies. C. A PUP provides additional liability coverage above the limits of underlying primary policies. D. A PUP covers damages to personal property such as jewelry and artwork. Correct answer: C. A PUP provides additional liability coverage above the limits of underlying primary policies. Explanation: A personal umbrella policy PUP serves to provide excess liability coverage beyond the limits of underlying primary policies such as homeowners or auto insurance. It does not replace underlying policies, Option A, nor does it cover specific personal property like jewelry or artwork, Option D. Option B is incorrect as PUPs typically do not cover additional perils not covered by underlying policies. Question 7. Scenario-based question. Mr. Parker, a resident of Connecticut, recently purchased a new home and is reviewing his homeowner's insurance policy. During a severe storm, a tree falls on Mr. Parker's roof, causing significant damage, which coverage under his homeowner's insurance policy would typically apply to repair the damage caused by the fallen tree. Coverage wood dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. D. Coverage D. Loss of use. Correct answer: A. Coverage wood dwelling. Explanation: Coverage A homeowner's insurance policy covers the dwelling itself against damage from specified perils, including windstorms and falling objects like trees. Option B covers other structures on the property, not the dwelling. Option C covers personal property inside the home. Option D covers additional living expenses if the home is uninhabitable due to a covered loss. Question 8. Insurance regulation in Connecticut. Which entity is primarily responsible for regulating insurance practices and protecting consumers? A. National Association of Insurance Commissioners, NAIC. B. Connecticut Insurance Department. C. American Insurance Association, AIA. D. Insurance Services Office, ISO. Correct answer: B. Connecticut Insurance Department. Explanation: The Connecticut Insurance Department is responsible for regulating insurance practices within the state, ensuring compliance with state laws and protecting consumers' interests. OPSHA-QNIC is a national organization that develops model laws and regulations but does not regulate insurance directly. Options C and D are industry organizations and service providers, respectively, not regulatory bodies. Question 9. Personal Auto Policy PAP MS. Lopez, a Connecticut resident, is reviewing her personal auto policy PAP. Which statement accurately describes the medical payments coverage, Part B of her policy? A. Part B covers damages to MS. Lopez's vehicle caused by a collision with an uninsured motorist. B. Part B provides coverage for injuries sustained by MS. Lopez's passengers in an at-fault accident. C. Part B reimburses MS. Lopez for medical expenses resulting from injuries sustained in an accident, regardless of fault. D. Part B extends coverage to MS. Lopez's vehicle for physical damage caused by theft or vandalism. Correct answer. C. Part B reimburses MS. Lopez for medical expenses resulting from injuries sustained in an accident, regardless of fault. Explanation. Medical payments coverage, Part B of a personal auto policy, PAP, covers medical expenses for injuries sustained by the insured driver and passengers, regardless of fault in the accident. Option A describes coverage under uninsured underinsured motorist coverage, Part C. Option B relates to liability coverage, Part A. Option D refers to coverage under comprehensive coverage, Part D. Question 10. Homeowners insurance. Mr. Foster has a homeowners insurance policy in Connecticut. Which of the following perils is typically excluded from coverage under his policy? A. Damage to Mr. Foster's home caused by a burst water pipe. B. Theft of jewelry from Mr. Foster's residence. C. Damage to Mr. Foster's roof caused by a windstorm. D. Flooding of Mr. Foster's basement due to heavy rain. Correct answer. D. Flooding of Mr. Foster's basement due to heavy rain. Explanation. Homeowners insurance policies typically exclude coverage for flooding, which includes water damage from external sources such as heavy rain or overflowing rivers. Options A, B, and C are examples of perils that may be covered under certain conditions, depending on the specifics of the policy and endorsements. Question 11. Personal liability insurance. Mrs. Jackson has personal liability insurance. Which statement best describes the coverage provided by this type of insurance? A. Personal liability insurance covers damage to Mrs. Jackson's personal property caused by a covered peril. B. Personal liability insurance provides coverage for legal expenses if Mrs. Jackson is sued for bodily injury or property damage she accidentally causes to others. C. Personal liability insurance covers medical expenses for injuries sustained by Mrs. Jackson's guests in her home. D. Personal liability insurance reimburses Mrs. Jackson for additional living expenses if her home becomes uninhabitable due to a covered loss. Correct answer. B. Personal liability insurance provides coverage for legal expenses if Mrs. Jackson is sued for bodily injury or property damage she accidentally causes to others. Explanation. Personal liability insurance provides coverage for third-party claims against the insured for bodily injury or property damage caused by negligence. It typically covers legal defense costs and settlements up to the policy limits. Options A, C, and D describe coverage provided by other types of insurance. E. G. Homeowners insurance. Question 12. Health insurance overview in Connecticut. Which type of health insurance plan allows members to choose their healthcare providers and does not require referrals to see specialists? A. Health maintenance organization, HMO. B. Preferred provider organization, PPO. C. Exclusive provider organization, EPO. D. Point of service POS plan. Correct answer. B. Preferred provider organization, PPO. Explanation. A preferred provider organization (PPO) allows members to visit any healthcare provider without a referral, although using network providers usually results in lower out-of-pocket costs. HMOS Option A. Require referrals to see specialists and restrict care to network providers. POS Option C and POS plans Option D also have network restrictions and referral requirements. Question 13. Ethics in insurance. Which ethical principle requires insurance agents to act in the best interests of their clients and disclose any conflicts of interest? A. Principle of subrogation. B. Principle of indemnity. C. Principle of utmost good faith. D. Principle of fiduciary duty. Correct answer. D. Principle of fiduciary duty. Explanation. The principle of fiduciary duty requires insurance agents and brokers to prioritize the interests of their clients above their own and disclose any conflict of interest that could affect their advice or actions. Options A, B, and C refer to other ethical principles in insurance but do not specifically address the agent's duty to act in the client's best interest. Question 14. Dwelling policy DP. Mr. Smith owns a rental property in Connecticut and has a dwelling policy DP3 to ensure the structure which coverage under the dwelling policy would protect Mr. Smith against physical damage caused by a fire. A. Coverage of dwelling. B. Coverage B. other structures. C, coverage C, personal property. D, coverage D, fair rental value. Correct answer A, coverage dwelling. Explanation. Coverage A dwelling policy DP insures the dwelling itself against specified perils, including fire. Option B covers other structures on the property. Option C covers personal property inside the dwelling, and Option D covers fair rental value if the property becomes uninhabitable due to a covered loss. Question 15. Flood insurance. Mrs. Roberts lives in a flood-prone area in Connecticut and is considering purchasing flood insurance. Which statement accurately describes coverage under the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP? A. NFIP provides coverage for damage to personal property caused by flooding, including furniture and clothing. B. NFIP covers damage to residential buildings, including detached garages, caused by flooding. C. NFIP automatically covers all homes located in flood zones, regardless of prior flood damage. D. NFIP includes coverage for temporary living expenses if a home is flooded and becomes uninhabitable. Correct answer B. NFIP covers damage to residential buildings, including detached garages, caused by flooding. Explanation. The National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, primarily provides coverage for residential buildings and their contents, including detached garages, against flood damage. Option. It describes coverage under personal property coverage. Option C is incorrect, as NFIP coverage is not automatic and requires enrollment. Option D refers to coverage under additional living expenses in homeowners insurance, not NFIP. Question 16. Claims handling. Mr. Johnson filed an insurance claim for damage to his home in Connecticut. During the claims process, what is the insurer's responsibility regarding claims investigation? A. The insurer must approve the claim and issue payment within 10 days of receiving all necessary documentation. B. The insurer must provide Mr. Johnson with a written explanation if the claim is denied or partially denied. C. The insurer is not required to disclose the reasons for any delays in processing the claim. D. The insurer has the right to request additional premiums if the claim exceeds the policy limits. Correct answer. B. The insurer must provide Mr. Johnson with a written explanation if the claim is denied or partially denied. Explanation. Insurance regulations typically require insurers to provide policyholders with a written explanation if a claim is denied or partially denied, including the reasons for the decision. Option is incorrect, as specific timelines for claims payment can vary by state and policy terms. Option C is false, as insurers generally must disclose reasons for delays. Option D is incorrect, as insurers cannot request additional premiums for claims covered within policy limits. Question 17. Inland Marine Insurance. MS. Taylor has purchased an inland marine insurance policy for her valuable personal property in Connecticut. Which of the following items is typically covered under a personal articles floater? A. MS. Taylor's motorhome parked in a driveway. B. MS. Taylor's antique jewelry collection. C. MS. Taylor's vegetable garden. D. MS. Taylor's home's roof. Correct answer B. MS. Taylor's antique jewelry collection. Explanation. A personal articles floater under an inland marine insurance policy is designed to cover valuable personal property such as jewelry, fine art, and antiques. Option A. A motorhome is typically covered under an auto or RV policy. Option C. A vegetable garden would generally fall under a homeowner's policy if it is covered at all. Option D. A home's roof is covered under a homeowner's policy. Question 18. Earthquake insurance. Mr. Lee is considering adding earthquake insurance to his homeowner's policy in Connecticut. Which of the following statements correctly describes a typical earthquake insurance policy? A. Earthquake insurance covers damage to the home from ground shifting due to landslides. B. Earthquake insurance policies typically have a low deductible similar to standard homeowners policies. C. Earthquake insurance covers structural damage to the home directly resulting from an earthquake. D. Earthquake insurance covers damage to personal property resulting from fire following an earthquake. Correct answer C. Earthquake insurance covers structural damage to the home directly resulting from an earthquake. Explanation. Earthquake insurance typically covers structural damage directly caused by an earthquake. Option is incorrect, as landslides are usually not covered unless specifically included. Option B is incorrect because earthquake insurance often has higher deductibles. Option D is incorrect, as damage from a fire following an earthquake would typically be covered by the standard homeowners policy's fire coverage. Question 19. Claims handling. Mr. Evans is involved in a dispute with his insurer over a claim for damage to his home in Connecticut. What is one of the primary dispute resolution methods available to him? A. Filing a complaint with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, NAIC. B. Requesting an appraisal under the policy's appraisal clause. C. Hiring a public adjuster to settle the claim. D. Filing a complaint with the American Insurance Association. Correct answer. B. Requesting an appraisal under the policy's appraisal clause. Explanation. The appraisal clause in many insurance policies provides a method for resolving disputes regarding the amount of loss. Either the insurer or the insured can request an appraisal, where each party selects an appraiser and the two appraisers select an umpire. Options A and D involve filing complaints with organizations that do not directly handle individual claims disputes. Option C involves hiring a public adjuster but does not directly resolve disputes in the same formal manner as the appraisal process. Question 20. Watercraft insurance. Mr. Green owns a boat and has a watercraft insurance policy in Connecticut. Which of the following coverages is typically included in a standard watercraft insurance policy? A. Coverage for wear and tear of the boat. B. Coverage for liability resulting from an accident caused by Mr. Green's boat. C. Coverage for mechanical breakdown of the boat's engine. D. Coverage for the boat's trailer while parked on Mr. Green's property. Correct answer. B. Coverage for liability resulting from an accident caused by Mr. Green's boat. Explanation. A standard watercraft insurance policy typically includes liability coverage for bodily injury and property damage that results from the use of the boat. Optionals, wear and tear, and option C, mechanical breakdown, are typically excluded from standard policies. Option D would usually require additional coverage or be part of a different policy. Question 21. Personal umbrella policy. Mrs. Anderson in Connecticut is considering a personal umbrella policy. Which of the following is a primary benefit of having a personal umbrella policy? A. It provides primary insurance coverage for all personal liability claims. B. It increases the coverage limits for specific high-value items like jewelry. C. It offers additional liability protection above the limits of her underlying homeowners and auto policies. D. It covers damages to Mrs. Anderson's home and car from natural disasters. Correct answer. C. It offers additional liability protection above the limits of her underlying homeowners and auto policies. Explanation. A personal umbrella policy provides additional liability protection that exceeds the coverage limits of the insured's underlying homeowners, auto, and other liability policies. It does not provide primary coverage. Option A. Increase coverage for specific items. Option B. Or cover property damage from natural disasters. Option D. Question 22. Scenario-based question. Mr. Robinson, a Connecticut resident, has a homeowner's insurance policy with a $1,000 deductible. During a severe storm, a tree branch breaks a window and causes $2,500 in damage to the interior of his home. How much will Mr. Robinson's insurance policy pay for this claim? A. $2,500. B. $1,500. C. $2,000. D. $1,000. Correct answer. B. $1,500. Explanation. Homeowners insurance policies typically require the policyholder to pay a deductible before coverage kicks in. In this scenario, Mr. Robinson's policy has a $1,000 deductible. The total damage is $2,500, so the insurance company will pay $2,500. $1,000 deductible equals $1,500 option, but does not account for the deductible. Option C subtracts an incorrect deductible amount, and option D only accounts for the deductible, not the remaining coverage. Question 23. Homeowners insurance. Mrs. Adams owns a home in Connecticut and has a homeowners insurance policy. She is concerned about potential liability for injuries sustained by visitors on her property, which coverage part of her homeowners insurance policy specifically addresses this concern. A. Coverage wood dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage E. Personal liability. D. Coverage F. Medical payments to others. Correct answer. C. Coverage E. Personal liability. Explanation. Coverage E. Personal liability in a homeowner's insurance policy provides protection if the policyholder is found legally liable for bodily injury or property damage to others. It covers legal defense costs and any settlement or judgment up to the policy limits. Coverage: A covers the dwelling, coverage B covers other structures on the property, and coverage F covers medical payments for injuries sustained by guests regardless of fault. Question 24. Flood insurance. Mr. Patel lives in a flood-prone area in Connecticut and is considering purchasing a flood insurance policy. Which of the following is typically covered under the National Flood Insurance Program in FIP? A. Damage to Mr. Patel's car parked in his driveway. B. Damage to Mr. Patel's basement caused by a burst water pipe. C. Damage to Mr. Patel's home and personal property caused by a flood. D. Damage to Mr. Patel's yard and landscaping due to heavy rain. Correct answer: C. Damage to Mr. Patel's home and personal property caused by a flood. Explanation: The National Flood Insurance Program (NFIP) provides coverage for direct physical damage to buildings and personal property caused by flooding. Option A would be covered under auto insurance, option B is generally covered under homeowners insurance, and option D is not typically covered by an FIP as it generally does not cover landscaping. Question 25. Scenario-based question. Mr. Bennett, a resident of Connecticut, is involved in an accident where he is at fault, causing damage to another driver's car and minor injuries to the other driver. He has a personal auto policy PAP with liability coverage limits of $5,125, $50,000 bodily injury per person, $100,000 bodily injury per accident, and $25,000 property damage. The total cost for the other driver's medical expenses is $60,000 and the cost to repair the other driver's car is $30,000. How much will Mr. Bennett's insurance policy pay for this accident? A. $60,000 for medical expenses and $30,000 for property damage. B. $50,000 for medical expenses and $30,000 for property damage. C. $50,000 for medical expenses and $25,000 for property damage. D. $60,000 for medical expenses and $25,000 for property damage. Correct answer: C. $50,000 for medical expenses and $25,000 for property damage. Explanation: Mr. Bennett's personal auto policy PAP has bodily injury liability limits of $50,000 per person and $100,000 per accident, as well as $25,000 for property damage. Since the other driver's medical expenses exceed the per person limit, the insurance will only pay up to $50,000 for property damage. The policy will pay up to its limit of $25,000. Therefore, the insurance will pay $50,000 for medical expenses and $25,000 for property damage. Question 26. Personal auto policy PAP. Mr. Edwards has a personal auto policy PAP in Connecticut. He is involved in an accident where he is at fault, resulting in damage to both his own vehicle and another driver's vehicle. Which part of his PAP will cover the damage to the other driver's vehicle? A. Part liability coverage. B. Part B, medical payments coverage. C. Part C, uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. D. Part D, coverage for damage to your auto. Correct answer: A. Part liability coverage. Explanation: Part liability coverage of a personal auto policy PAP covers damages for which the insured is legally responsible, including bodily injury and property damage to others. This includes damage to another driver's vehicle in an at-fault accident. Part B covers medical payments, Part C covers damages caused by uninsured or underinsured motorists, and Part D covers damage to the insured's own vehicle. Question 27. Homeowners insurance. MS Walker has a homeowners insurance policy in Connecticut. During a severe storm, a tree falls and damages a detached garage. Which part of her homeowners insurance policy will cover the damage to the garage? A. Coverage with dwelling. B. Coverage B, other structures. C. Coverage C, personal property. D. Coverage D, loss of use. Correct answer: B. Coverage B, other structures. Explanation: Coverage B, other structures in a homeowner's insurance policy covers damage to structures on the property that are not attached to the main dwelling, such as detached garages, fences, and sheds. Coverage applies to the main dwelling, Coverage C applies to personal property, and Coverage D covers additional living expenses if the home becomes uninhabitable. Question 28. Scenario-based question. Mr. Thompson, a Connecticut resident has a personal umbrella policy with a $1 million limit. He is sued for $1.5 million after an incident at his home where a guest was seriously injured. His underlying homeowner's insurance policy has a liability limit of $300,000. How much will Mr. Thompson's personal umbrella policy pay if he is found liable for the full amount of $1.5 million? A. $1 million. B. $1.2 million. C. $1.5 million. D. $300,000. Correct answer B. $1.2 million. Explanation: a personal umbrella policy provides additional liability coverage beyond the limits of the underlying insurance policy. In this case, Mr. Thompson's homeowner's insurance policy covers $300,000 of the liability. The remaining $1.2 million, $1.5 million, $300,000 will be covered by his personal umbrella policy, which has a $1 million limit. Therefore, the umbrella policy will pay $1.2 million. Question 29. Insurance principles and concepts. Which principle of insurance is violated if an insured is found to have provided false information on an insurance application to obtain coverage? A. Principle of indemnity. B. Principle of insurable interest. C. Principle of utmost good faith. D. Principle of subrogation. Correct answer C. Principle of utmost good faith. Explanation: the principle of utmost good faith requires both the insurer and the insured to act honestly and disclose all relevant facts. Providing false information on an insurance application violates this principle. The principle of indemnity ensures that the insured is restored to their financial position before the loss. The principle of insurable interest ensures that the insured has a legitimate interest in the insured property, and the principle of subrogation allows the insurer to pursue a third party that caused a loss to the insured. Question 30. Health insurance overview. Mr. Parker has a high deductible health AHP in Connecticut. Which of the following is a characteristic of an HDHP? A. Low premiums and low out-of-pocket costs. B. High premiums and low out-of-pocket costs. C. Low premiums and high out-of-pocket costs. D. High premiums and high out-of-pocket costs. Correct answer C. Low premiums and high out-of-pocket costs. Explanation: a high deductible health per AHP typically features lower premiums compared to other health plans, but higher out-of-pocket costs in the form of deductibles and copayments. This makes it more affordable in terms of monthly premiums, but potentially more costly when medical care is needed. Question 31. Personal umbrella policy. Mr. and Mrs. Carter in Connecticut are considering purchasing a personal umbrella policy. What is one of the key underwriting considerations for an insurer when issuing a personal umbrella policy? A. The value of the policyholder's personal property. B. The policyholder's driving record. C. The age of the policyholder's home. D. The policyholder's employment status. Correct answer B. The policyholder's driving record. Explanation: one of the key underwriting considerations for a personal umbrella policy is the policyholder's driving record, as this affects the risk of potential liability claims. The value of personal property, age of the home, and employment status are not primary factors for underwriting a liability-focused umbrella policy. Question 32. Inland marine insurance. Which of the following types of property is typically covered by an inland marine insurance policy under a personal property floater? A. A personal computer used for business purposes. B. A privately owned aircraft. C. Jewelry and fine arts. D. A boat and its trailer. Correct answer C. Jewelry and fine arts. Explanation: inland marine insurance typically covers personal property that is highly mobile or valuable, such as jewelry, fine arts, and collectibles under a personal property floater. A personal computer used for business purposes would likely require a commercial policy. A privately owned aircraft is covered under aviation insurance, and a boat and its trailer are covered under watercraft insurance. Question 33. Scenario-based question. MS. Murphy, a resident of Connecticut, has a homeowner's insurance policy with a $2,000 deductible. During a severe windstorm, a tree falls on her roof, causing $10,000 in damage. Additionally, her fence was damaged, requiring $1,500 in repairs. How much will her insurance policy pay in total for the damages? A. $9,500. B. $10,000. C. $7,500. D. $8,500. Correct answer C. $7,500 explanation. Homeowners insurance policies generally apply a single deductible per claim event, in this case MS. Murphy's total damage is $10,000 roof plus $1,500 and equals $11,500 after applying the $2,000 deductible. The insurance policy will pay $11,500. $2,000 equals $1,500 for the total damages. Question 34. Insurance principles and concepts in Connecticut. Which principle of insurance ensures that an insurance contract is only valid if the insured has a financial interest in the subject matter of the insurance? A. Principle of indemnity. B. Principle of insurable interest. C. Principle of utmost good faith. D. Principle of subrogation. Correct answer. B. Principle of insurable interest. Explanation. The principle of insurable interest ensures that an insurance contract is valid only if the insured stands to suffer financial loss if the insured event occurs. This principle helps prevent moral hazard and ensures that insurance contracts are not used for speculative purposes. The principle of indemnity restores the insured to their financial position prior to the loss. The principle of utmost good faith requires honesty in disclosure by both parties, and the principle of subrogation allows the insurer to pursue a third party responsible for a loss. Question 35. Claims handling. MS. Johnson, a Connecticut resident, files a claim with her insurance company after fire damages her home. The insurer denies her claim, citing that the fire was intentionally set. What type of policy exclusion is the insurer likely relying on? A. Exclusion for wear and tear. B. Exclusion for acts of God. C. Exclusion for intentional acts. D. Exclusion for water damage. Correct answer. C. Exclusion for intentional acts. Explanation. Most insurance policies contain exclusions for intentional acts, meaning that the insurer will not cover losses resulting from actions that the insured intentionally caused. This exclusion is designed to prevent insurance fraud. Exclusions for wear and tear, acts of God, and water damage address different types of losses and are not relevant in this case. Question 36. Personal auto policy. PAP. Mr. White has a personal auto policy. PAP in Connecticut. His policy includes medical payments coverage. Part B. If Mr. White and his passengers are injured in an accident, which of the following best describes how medical payments coverage will respond? A. It covers only Mr. White's medical expenses. B. It covers medical expenses for Mr. White and his passengers regardless of fault. C. It covers only medical expenses for passengers in the other vehicle. D. It covers medical expenses only if Mr. White is at fault. Correct answer. B. It covers medical expenses for Mr. White and his passengers regardless of fault. Explanation. Medical payments coverage. Part B. In a personal auto policy covers reasonable and necessary medical expenses for the insured and passengers in the insured's vehicle regardless of fault. It is designed to provide prompt payment for medical expenses without regard to liability. Question 37. Homeowners insurance. Mrs. Lopez has a homeowners insurance policy in Connecticut with coverage C. Personal property and a scheduled personal property endorsement for her valuable art collection. If her home is burglarized and several pieces of art are stolen, how will her policy respond? A. The loss will be covered under coverage was dwelling. B. The loss will be covered under coverage C. Personal property, subject to the policy limits and deductible. C. The loss will be covered under the scheduled personal property endorsement, which provides coverage without a deductible. D. The loss will not be covered as art is typically excluded from standard homeowners policies. Correct answer. C. The loss will be covered under the scheduled personal property endorsement, which provides coverage without a deductible. Explanation. The scheduled personal property endorsement allows the policyholder to specifically list valuable items such as art, jewelry, and collectibles, often providing coverage that is broader and without a deductible compared to the standard coverage provided under coverage C. Personal property. This endorsement ensures that valuable items are adequately insured against loss. Question 38. Scenario-based question. Mr. Martinez, a Connecticut resident, has a homeowner's insurance policy with a $1,000 deductible and liability coverage limits of $300,000 during a winter storm. Ice forms on his driveway, causing a delivery person to slip and sustain injuries amounting to $25,000 in medical expenses. How much will Mr. Martinez's policy pay for the medical expenses? A. $0 because the incident occurred on Mr. Martinez's property. B. $24,000 after applying the $1,000 deductible. C. $25,000 as liability coverage typically does not have a deductible. D. $300,000 covering the full liability limit. Correct answer. C. $25,000 as liability coverage typically does not have a deductible. Explanation: liability coverage in a homeowner's insurance policy typically covers the insured's legal responsibility for bodily injury to others and does not have a deductible. Therefore, the policy will pay the full amount of $25,000 for the delivery person's medical expenses. The deductible applies to property damage claims, not liability claims. Question 39. Flood insurance. Mr. O'Neill lives in Connecticut and has purchased a flood insurance policy through the National Flood Insurance Program and FIP. Which of the following is excluded from coverage under his NFIP policy? A. Damage to his home's foundation caused by floodwaters. B. Personal property located in the basement. C. Increased cost of compliance with local floodplain management laws. D. Debris removal after a flood. Correct answer: B. Personal property located in the basement. Explanation: NFIP policies do not cover personal property located in basements, with limited exceptions such as central air conditioners, pumps, and certain appliances. While foundation damage, option A, increased cost of compliance, option C, and debris removal, option D, are covered. Personal belongings stored in basements generally are not. Question 40. Personal umbrella policy. MS Klein in Connecticut has a personal umbrella policy with a $2 million limit. She is sued for $3 million due to an at-fault accident that resulted in significant bodily injury to another party. Her underlying auto insurance has a liability limit of $500,000. How much will her umbrella policy pay if she is found liable for the full amount? A. $2.5 million. B. $3 million. C. $2 million. D. $1.5 million. Correct answer: C. $2 million. Explanation: a personal umbrella policy provides additional liability coverage above the limits of the insured's underlying policies. In this scenario, her auto insurance pays the first $500,000 and the umbrella policy covers the next $2 million, totaling $2.5 million. However, since the umbrella policy's limit is $2 million, the umbrella policy will cover $2 million, and MS Klein would be responsible for the remaining $500,000. Question 41. Scenario-based question. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, residents of Connecticut, have a homeowner's insurance policy with a $1,500 deductible. A windstorm causes significant damage to their roof, totaling $8,000. Additionally, the storm destroys their patio furniture, valued at $2,000. How much will their insurance policy pay for these damages? A. $8,500. B. $8,000. C. $6,500. D. $10,000. Correct answer: A. $8,500. Explanation: homeowners insurance policies typically apply a single deductible per event. The total damage from the windstorm is $8,000, roof plus $2,000, patio furniture equals $8,000. After applying the $1,500 deductible, the insurance policy will pay $10,000. $1,500 equals $8,500. Question 42. Insurance regulation. Which Connecticut state regulation mandates that insurance companies must provide a clear and concise explanation of claim denial to policyholders? A. Connecticut Unfair Insurance Practices Act. B. Connecticut Consumer Protection Act. C. Connecticut Insurance Transparency Act. D. Connecticut Fair Claims Settlement Practices Act. Correct answer: D. Connecticut Fair Claims Settlement Practices Act. Explanation: the Connecticut Fair Claims Settlement Practices Act requires insurance companies to provide policyholders with a clear and concise explanation when a claim is denied. This regulation is designed to ensure transparency and fairness in the claims process. The Connecticut Unfair Insurance Practices Act addresses broader unfair practices, while the Connecticut Consumer Protection Act and Connecticut Insurance Transparency Act do not specifically mandate claim denial explanations. Question 43. Personal auto policy. PAP. MS Rivera has a personal auto policy PAP in Connecticut with uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. If she is injured by a driver who has no insurance, what expenses are covered under Part C of her policy? A. Only medical expenses up to the policy limits. B. Medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering up to the policy limits. C. Only property damage to her vehicle. D. Only her medical expenses after her health insurance has paid. Correct answer: B. Medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering up to the policy limits. Explanation: uninsured underinsured motorist coverage. Part C in a personal auto policy (PAP) provides coverage for bodily injury expenses such as medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering when the insured is injured by a driver who has no insurance or insufficient insurance. It does not cover property damage or require the insured to first use their health insurance. Question 44. Scenario-based question. Mr. Green, a Connecticut resident, has a homeowner's insurance policy with a $1,000 deductible. During a severe storm, his home's roof is damaged and water leaked into the house, causing $15,000 in damage to the structure and $5,000 in damage to personal property. How much will his insurance policy pay for these damages? A. $20,000. B. $19,000. C. $15,000. D. $14,000. Correct answer: B. $19,000. Explanation: homeowners insurance policies typically apply a single deductible per covered event. The total damage is $15,000 structure plus $5,000 personal property equals $20,000. After applying the $1,000 deductible, the insurance policy will pay $20,000. 1,000 equals $18,000. Question 45. Homeowners insurance. Mr. Larson has a homeowners insurance policy in Connecticut. He accidentally starts a fire in his kitchen, causing extensive damage to the kitchen and smoke damage throughout the house. Which part of his policy will cover the costs to repair the damage? A. Coverage the dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. D. Coverage D. Loss of use. Correct answer: A. Coverage with dwelling. Explanation: coverage with dwelling in a homeowner's insurance policy covers damage to the structure of the home, including repairs needed due to a fire. Coverage B applies to other structures on the property, coverage C applies to personal property, and coverage D covers additional living expenses if the home becomes uninhabitable. Question 46. Personal umbrella policy. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Connecticut residents, are considering a personal umbrella policy. What is one key benefit of having this policy? A. It increases the coverage limits of their health insurance. B. It provides liability coverage for claims not covered by their primary policies. C. It covers all types of property damage. D. It eliminates the need for any other insurance policies. Correct answer: B. It provides liability coverage for claims not covered by their primary policies. Explanation: a personal umbrella policy provides additional liability coverage above the limits of the insured's primary policies, such as auto and homeowners insurance. It also covers some claims that may not be covered by the primary policies. It does not increase health insurance coverage, cover all types of property damage, or eliminate the need for other insurance policies. Question 47. Inland Marine Insurance MS. Dyers owns several valuable pieces of jewelry and a rare coin collection. Which type of inland marine insurance coverage would be most appropriate to protect these items? A. Personal effects coverage. B. Personal property floater. C. Personal articles floater. D. Valuable papers and records coverage. Correct answer: C. Personal articles floater. Explanation: a personal articles floater is designed to provide coverage for valuable individual items such as jewelry, rare coins, fine arts, and other collectibles. Personal effects coverage generally applies to items carried or worn by the insured. Personal property floater covers broader categories of personal property, and valuable papers and records coverage applies to important documents. Question 48. Claims handling in Connecticut. If an insurance company fails to settle a claim promptly and fairly, which regulatory body has the authority to investigate and impose penalties? A. National Association of Insurance Commissioners (NAIC). B. Federal Trade Commission (FTC). C. Connecticut Insurance Department. D. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC). Correct answer: C. Connecticut Insurance Department. Explanation: the Connecticut Insurance Department is the regulatory body responsible for overseeing insurance companies within the state. It has the authority to investigate complaints, ensure compliance with state insurance laws, and impose penalties for unfair claim settlement practices. The NAIC sets standards and provides regulatory support but does not enforce state laws. The FTC and SEC do not regulate insurance claims. Question 49. Watercraft insurance. Mr. Turner, a Connecticut resident, has a watercraft insurance policy that includes liability coverage. While sailing, he accidentally collides with another boat, causing injuries to the other boat's passengers. What will his liability coverage pay for? Late repairs to his own boat. B. Injuries to his own passengers. C. Injuries to the other boat's passengers and damages to the other boat. D. Environmental cleanup costs. Correct answer. C. Injuries to the other boat's passengers and damages to the other boat. Explanation. Liability coverage in a watercraft insurance policy pays for bodily injury and property damage for which the insured is legally responsible. This includes injuries to the other boat's passengers and damages to the other boat. Repairs to Mr. Turner's own boat and injuries to his own passengers would be covered under other parts of his policy. Environmental cleanup costs are typically covered under separate endorsements or specialized policies. Question 50. Personal auto policy. PAP. MS Lee has a personal auto policy PAP in Connecticut that includes collision and comprehensive coverage if a car is stolen and later found with significant damage, which coverage part will pay for the repairs. A. Liability coverage. Part A. B. Medical payments coverage. Part B. C. Uninsured underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. D. Comprehensive coverage. Part D. Correct answer. D. Comprehensive coverage. Part D. Explanation. Comprehensive coverage. Part D in a personal auto policy covers losses resulting from incidents other than collisions, such as theft, vandalism, fire, and natural disasters. Since MS Lee's car was stolen and damaged, the repairs would be covered under comprehensive coverage. Liability coverage. Part A covers third-party claims. Medical payments coverage. Part B covers medical expenses and uninsured underinsured motorist coverage. Part C covers injuries caused by uninsured or underinsured drivers. Question 51. Dwelling policy. DP. Mr. Thompson owns a rental property in Connecticut, insured under E3 Special Form Dwelling Policy. A hailstorm causes damage to the roof and siding of the property. Which coverage part of his policy will respond to this loss? A. Coverage word dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. D. Coverage D. Fair rental value. Correct answer. A. Coverage was dwelling. Explanation. The D3 Special Form Dwelling Policy provides coverage for the dwelling on an open perils basis, meaning it covers all causes of loss unless specifically excluded. Coverage was dwelling applies to the main structure of the property, including the roof and siding. Coverage B applies to other structures on the property. Coverage C applies to personal property, and coverage D provides coverage for loss of rental income if the property becomes uninhabitable due to a covered loss. Question 52. Flood insurance in Connecticut. Which of the following statements about the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, is correct? A. NFIP policies provide coverage for sewer backup regardless of flood involvement. B. NFIP policies cover damage to basements and all their contents. C. NFIP policies are available to homeowners, renters, and businesses in participating communities. D. NFIP policies include additional living expenses coverage by default. Correct answer. C. NFIP policies are available to homeowners, renters, and businesses in participating communities. Explanation. The National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, offers flood insurance to homeowners, renters, and businesses in communities that participate in the program and adopt floodplain management regulations. NFIP policies do not typically cover sewer backup unless it is directly caused by a flood, and coverage for basements and their contents is limited. Additional living expenses coverage is not included by default in NFIP policies. Question 53. Personal auto policy. PAP. Mr. Newen, a Connecticut resident, has a personal auto policy PAP that includes uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. If he is injured in an accident caused by a driver who has insurance, but not enough to cover the full extent of his injuries, what will his Part C coverage pay? A. Only the medical expenses after his health insurance has paid. B. The difference between the at-fault driver's liability limits and his actual damages up to his policy limits. C. The full amount of his injuries, regardless of the at-fault driver's insurance. D. Nothing, since the at-fault driver has some insurance coverage. Correct answer. B. The difference between the at-fault driver's liability limits and his actual damages up to his policy limits. Explanation. Uninsured under insured motorist coverage. Part C. In a personal auto policy pays for bodily injury expenses that exceed the at-fault driver's liability limits up to the insured's own policy limits. This coverage helps ensure that Mr. Nguyen is compensated for his injuries when the at-fault driver's insurance is insufficient. It does not cover the full amount of injuries beyond the policy limits or only after health insurance has paid. Question 54. Personal liability insurance. Ms. Thompson, a Connecticut resident, has personal liability insurance. While hosting a party at her home, a guest slips on her wet kitchen floor and sustains injuries. Which of the following expenses would her personal liability insurance most likely cover? A. Repair costs for the damaged kitchen floor. B. Legal fees if the guest sues her. C. Medical payments to others. Coverage F for the injured guest. D. Increased home utility bills due to the incident. Correct answer. B. Legal fees if the guest sues her. Explanation. Personal liability insurance typically covers legal fees, judgments, and settlements if the insured is sued for bodily injury or property damage caused to others, while medical payments to others may also be covered under Coverage F of a homeowner's insurance policy. It is not the primary function of personal liability insurance. Repair costs for the home and increased utility bills are not covered under personal liability insurance. Question 55. Inland Marine Insurance. Mr. Patel has a personal articles floater as part of his inland marine insurance in Connecticut. He recently purchased an expensive painting. Which of the following must he do to ensure the painting is covered? A. Add the painting to his homeowner's policy under Coverage C. B. Schedule the painting specifically in his personal articles floater. C. Notify his insurance agent within 30 days of purchase. D. Keep the painting in a safe location to prevent damage. Correct answer. B. Schedule the painting specifically in his personal articles floater. Explanation. To ensure coverage for high-value items like an expensive painting, Mr. Patel must schedule the painting specifically in his personal articles floater. This provides detailed coverage for the item, typically requiring an appraisal and listing the item with its value. Simply adding it to his homeowner's policy under Coverage C would not provide the necessary coverage, and while notifying his agent and keeping the painting safe are good practices, they do not guarantee coverage. Question 56. Health insurance overview in Connecticut. Which of the following is a characteristic of a preferred provider organization (PPO) health plan? A. Requires members to use only network providers for all services. B. Provides coverage for out-of-network care at a higher cost. C. Requires members to choose a primary care physician and get referrals to see specialists. D. Typically has lower premiums and higher out-of-pocket costs compared to health maintenance organizations (HMOs). Correct answer. B. Provides coverage for out-of-network care at a higher cost. Explanation. The preferred provider organization (PPO) health plan allows members to use both in-network and out-of-network providers, but out-of-network care is typically covered at a higher cost to the member. PPOs do not require members to choose a primary care physician or get referrals to see specialists, which is a characteristic of health maintenance organizations (HMOs). While premiums and out-of-pocket costs can vary, PPOs generally offer more flexibility than HMOs, which may come with higher premiums and out-of-pocket costs. Question 57. Homeowners insurance. Mrs. Johnson, a Connecticut resident, has an HO3 homeowners insurance policy. A tree falls during a storm and damages a detached garage. Under which coverage part of her policy will this loss be covered? A. Coverage dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. And D. Coverage D. Loss of use. Correct answer. B. Coverage B. Other structures. Explanation. Coverage B. Other structures in a homeowner's insurance policy covers buildings on the insured property that are not attached to the main dwelling, such as detached garages, sheds, and fences. Damage to the detached garage from the fallen tree would be covered under this part. Coverage applies to the main dwelling. Coverage C applies to personal property, and Coverage D provides coverage for additional living expenses if the home becomes uninhabitable. Question 58. Personal auto policy PAP. Mr. Anderson has a personal auto policy PAP in Connecticut. He rents a car while on vacation and is involved in an accident, which coverage from his PAP will most likely extend to the rental car. Liability coverage PI. B. Medical payments coverage. Part B. C. Uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. D. Collision and comprehensive coverage. Part D. Correct answer. D. Collision and comprehensive coverage. Part D. Explanation. Collision and comprehensive coverage. Part D. From a personal auto policy typically extend to rental cars, covering physical damage to the rented vehicle. Liability coverage. Part A. May also extend to cover third-party claims, but collision and comprehensive specifically address damage to the vehicle itself. Medical payments coverage, Part B, and uninsured underinsured motorist coverage, Part C, are for bodily injuries. Question 59. Personal umbrella policy. Dr. Garcia, a Connecticut resident, is sued for $1 million due to a severe injury caused by her dog. Her homeowner's insurance policy has a liability limit of $300,000. She also has a personal umbrella policy with a limit of $1 million. How much will her personal umbrella policy pay towards the claim? A. $700,000. B. $1 million. C. $300,000. D. $1,300,000. Correct answer A. $700,000. Explanation. A personal umbrella policy provides excess liability coverage over the limits of underlying policies. In this case, Dr. Garcia's homeowner's insurance will pay up to its $300,000 limit, and her personal umbrella policy will pay the remaining $700,000 to cover the $1 million claim. The total coverage from both policies meets the claim amount, but the umbrella policy only covers the excess above the homeowner's policy limit. Question 60. Ethics in insurance in Connecticut. Which of the following actions by an insurance agent would be considered an unethical practice under state regulations? A. Providing a client with multiple policy options to choose from. B. Disclosing a client's personal information without consent. C. Offering a discount on premiums for prompt payment. D. Explaining policy exclusions in detail to a client. Correct answer. B. Disclosing a client's personal information without consent. Explanation. Under Connecticut regulations, disclosing a client's personal information without their consent is considered an unethical practice and a violation of privacy laws. Insurance agents are required to protect the confidentiality of their clients' information. Providing multiple policy options, offering discounts for prompt payment, and explaining policy exclusions are all ethical and professional practices. Question 61. Flood insurance. MS. Evans owns a home in a high-risk flood zone in Connecticut and purchases a standard flood insurance policy (SFIP) through the National Flood Insurance Program (NFIP). Which of the following is true regarding her coverage? A. The SFIP will cover all types of water damage, including sewer backups. B. The SFIP includes coverage for basement contents such as personal property. C. The SFIP has a waiting period before coverage takes effect. D. The SFIP provides unlimited coverage for structural damage. Correct answer. C. The SFIP has a waiting period before coverage takes effect. Explanation. Standard flood insurance policies (SFIP) under the NFIP typically have a 30-day waiting period before coverage becomes effective, unless the policy is purchased in connection with a loan. The SFIP does not cover all types of water damage, such as sewer backups, unless they are directly caused by a flood. Coverage for basement contents is limited, and there are specific coverage limits for structural damage. Question 62. Personal auto policy. PAP. Mr. Carter, a Connecticut resident, has a personal auto policy PAP with liability coverage, Part A, and medical payments coverage. Part B, he is involved in an accident where he is at fault, resulting in injuries to the passengers in his car, which part of his policy will pay for the medical expenses of his passengers. A. Liability coverage. Part A. B. Medical payments coverage. Part B. C. Uninsured underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. D. Collision coverage. Part D. Correct answer. B. Medical payments coverage. Part B. Explanation. Medical payments coverage. Part B. In a personal auto policy, PAP covers medical expenses for the insured and their passengers, regardless of who is at fault in an accident. Liability coverage. Part A covers bodily injury and property damage to third parties. Uninsured underinsured motorist coverage. Part C applies when the at-fault driver is uninsured or underinsured, and collision coverage. Part D covers damage to the insured's vehicle. Question 63. personal auto policy PAP. Mr. Rivera, a Connecticut resident, has a personal auto policy PAP that includes collision coverage and comprehensive coverage. While parked on the street, his car is severely damaged by a falling tree during a storm. Which part of his policy will cover the cost of repairs? A. Liability coverage. Part A. B. Medical payments coverage. Part B. C. Collision coverage. Part D. Comprehensive coverage. Part D. Correct answer. D. Comprehensive coverage. Part D. Explanation. Comprehensive coverage. Part D. Under personal auto policy, PAP covers damage to the insured vehicle from incidents other than collisions, such as theft, fire, vandalism, and natural disasters like a falling tree. Collision coverage. Part D covers damage from collisions with other vehicles or objects. Liability coverage. Part A covers third-party damages and medical payments coverage. Part B covers medical expenses for the insured and passengers. Question 64. Homeowners insurance, MS. Vereen has a HO5 homeowners insurance policy in Connecticut. She accidentally leaves her stove on, causing a fire that destroys her kitchen and some valuable jewelry stored in a drawer. Which coverage part will respond to the loss of the jewelry? A. Coverage was Welling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. D. Coverage D. Loss of use. Correct answer. C. Coverage C. Personal property. Explanation. Coverage C. Personal property in a homeowner's insurance policy covers personal belongings of the insured, including valuable items like jewelry, subject to policy limits and sublimits. Coverage was Welling applies to the structure of the home. Coverage B. Other structures applies to detached structures. And coverage D. Loss of use provides additional living expenses if the home becomes uninhabitable. Question 65. Inland Marine Insurance, MS. Johnson has a personal articles floater under her inland marine insurance policy in Connecticut, covering her valuable violin. If the violin is stolen from her car, what is required for her to receive compensation? A. Proof of ownership and value of the violin. B. A police report documenting the theft. C. Both A and B. D. No documentation is needed. Correct answer. C. Both A and B. Explanation. To receive compensation for the stolen violin under personal articles floater, MS. Johnson needs to provide proof of ownership and value, as well as a police report documenting the theft. These requirements help validate the claim and ensure the item was covered under the policy. Question 66. Flood insurance. Mr. Parker owns a home in Connecticut and purchases a national flood insurance program NFIP policy. Which of the following would NOT be covered under his NFIP policy? A. Structural damage caused by flooding. B. Personal property damage in a finished basement. C. Increased cost of compliance like coverage for elevating the home. D. Cleanup expenses after flood. Correct answer. B. Personal property damage in a finished basement. Explanation. NFIP policies generally do not cover personal property damage in basements, whether finished or unfinished. Structural damage caused by flooding, increased cost of compliance like coverage for elevating the home, and cleanup expenses after a flood are covered under the NFIP policy, subject to policy limits and exclusions. Question 67. Personal liability insurance, MS. Lewis, a Connecticut resident, has personal liability insurance as part of her homeowner's insurance policy. While playing golf, she accidentally injures another player. Will her personal liability insurance cover this incident? A. Yes, personal liability insurance covers all activities anywhere in the world. B. No, personal liability insurance only covers incidents on the insured property. C. Yes, but only if the injured party is a guest at her home. D. No, sports-related injuries are always excluded. Correct answer. A. Yes, personal liability insurance covers all activities anywhere in the world. Explanation. Personal liability insurance typically provides worldwide coverage for bodily injury or property damage for which the insured is legally responsible, including incidents that occur off the insured property. This would include accidental injuries caused while playing sports such as golf. The policy may have specific exclusions, but sports-related injuries are generally covered unless explicitly excluded. Question 68. Claims handling in Connecticut. If an insurance company finds that a claim involves fraudulent activities, what action is the company required to take according to state regulations? A. Deny the claim immediately and close the case. B. Report the suspected fraud to the Connecticut Insurance Department and appropriate law enforcement agencies. C. Continue processing the claim without mentioning the suspicion of fraud to the claimant. D. Pay the claim but flag the policy for future reference. Correct answer. B. Report the suspected fraud to the Connecticut Insurance Department and appropriate law enforcement agencies. Explanation: Connecticut regulations require insurance companies to report suspected fraudulent activities to the Connecticut Insurance Department and, if necessary, to law enforcement agencies. This helps maintain the integrity of the insurance industry and protect consumers from fraudulent claims. Question 69. Personal umbrella policy. Mr. Williams has a personal umbrella policy in Connecticut with a self-insured retention of $1,000. He is found liable for $200,000 in damages in a personal injury lawsuit, and his underlying homeowner's insurance policy pays its limit of $100,000. How much will Mr. Williams' personal umbrella policy pay? A. $99,000. B. $100,000. C. $101,000. D. $200,000. Correct answer: A. $99,000. Explanation: the personal umbrella policy will pay the remaining amount after the underlying policy limits and the self-insured retentions are applied. The underlying policy pays $100,000 and Mr. Williams must pay the SIR of $1,000, leaving $99,000 to be covered by the umbrella policy. $200,000. $100,000. 1,000 equals $89,000. Question 70. Homeowners insurance. Mr. and Mrs. Smith have an Hawthorne renters insurance policy in Connecticut. During a severe storm, a tree falls and damages the roof of their rented apartment, causing water to damage their personal belongings. Which coverage will respond to their personal property loss? A. Coverage will dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. D. Coverage D. Loss of use. Correct answer: C. Coverage C. Personal property. Explanation: an Hawthorne renters insurance policy provides coverage C for the personal property of the insured. This coverage will respond to damage to their personal belongings caused by the storm. Coverage and B are not applicable in renters policies, and coverage D provides for additional living expenses if the rental unit becomes uninhabitable. Question 71. Earthquake insurance in Connecticut. Which of the following is true regarding earthquake insurance as an endorsement to a homeowner's insurance policy? A. It is automatically included in standard homeowners policies. B. That it covers only the structure of the home and not personal belongings. C. It typically has a high deductible separate from the standard homeowners policy deductible. D. It excludes coverage for aftershocks occurring within 72 hours of the initial quake. Correct answer: C. It typically has a high deductible separate from the standard homeowners policy deductible. Explanation: earthquake insurance is not automatically included in standard homeowners policies and must be purchased as an endorsement or a separate policy. It covers both the structure and personal belongings, but typically comes with a high deductible that is separate from the standard policy deductible. Coverage usually includes aftershocks within a specified period, such as 72 hours. Question 72. Insurance regulation. Which of the following is a function of the Connecticut Insurance Department? A. Setting premium rates for all insurance products. B. Enforcing licensing requirements for insurance agents and brokers. C. Arbitrating claims disputes between insurers and insureds. D. Providing insurance coverage for high-risk individuals. Correct answer: B. Enforcing licensing requirements for insurance agents and brokers. Explanation: the Connecticut Insurance Department is responsible for enforcing licensing requirements for insurance agents and brokers to ensure they meet the necessary qualifications and adhere to regulatory standards. The department does not set premium rates for all products, arbitrate claims disputes, or provide insurance coverage for high-risk individuals, though it may oversee the regulation of premium rates and manage dispute resolution processes. Question 73. Inland marine insurance. Mr. Bennett has a personal articles floater under his inland marine insurance policy in Connecticut, covering his collection of rare stamps. During a move, some of the stamps are lost. Under what condition would his policy cover the loss? A. The stamps must be declared lost within 30 days of the move. B. The loss must be reported to the moving company for reimbursement. C. The stamps must have been individually scheduled in the policy. D. The loss must be caused by a peril listed in the homeowner's policy. Correct answer: C. The stamps must have been individually scheduled in the policy. Explanation. For valuable items like rare stamps or personal articles, floater requires the items to be individually scheduled, specifying their value and providing detailed descriptions. This ensures proper coverage. General reporting to the moving company or having. The general homeowner's policy would not be sufficient for specialized items covered under an inland marine policy. Question 74. Dwelling policy DMS. Davis owns a rental property in Connecticut, insured under E3 policy. If the property is damaged by a fire and becomes uninhabitable, which coverage part will provide for her loss of rental income? A. Coverage E was dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. D. Coverage D. Fair rental value. Correct answer. D. Coverage D. Fair rental value. Explanation. Coverage D. Fair rental value in a E3 policy provides compensation for the loss of rental income if the insured rental property becomes uninhabitable due to a covered peril, such as fire. This allows the property owner to recover lost rental income during the repair period. Coverage A applies to the dwelling, coverage B to other structures, and coverage C to personal property. Question 75. Health insurance overview in Connecticut. Which of the following statements is true about high deductible health plan? They are not eligible for health savings accounts. HSAS. B. They typically have lower premiums and higher out-of-pocket costs. C. They cover preventive care only after the deductible is met. D. They require members to choose a primary care physician. Correct answer. B. They typically have lower premiums and higher out-of-pocket costs. Explanation. High deductible health plan issues generally have lower premiums compared to other health insurance plans but come with higher out-of-pocket costs, including higher deductibles. They are eligible for health savings accounts, HSAS, which provide tax advantages for medical expenses. HPS often cover preventive care before the deductible is met, and they do not typically require members to choose a primary care physician. Question 76. Personal auto policy PAP. MS Lee as a personal auto policy PAP in Connecticut with liability coverage. Part A, medical payments coverage. Part B, an uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Part C, she is involved in a hit-and-run accident where the other driver flees the scene. Which coverage from her policy will apply in this situation? A, liability coverage. Part A. B, medical payments coverage. Part B. C, uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. D, comprehensive coverage. Part D. Correct answer. C, uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. Explanation. Uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. Part C. In a personal auto policy, PAP covers bodily injury damages caused by a hit-and-run driver or a driver who is uninsured or underinsured. This coverage ensures that MS Lee is protected even if the at-fault driver cannot be identified or does not have sufficient insurance to cover her injuries. Question 77. Homeowners insurance. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson have an HO3 homeowners insurance policy in Connecticut. A neighbor slips and falls on their icy driveway, resulting in injuries. Which coverage part of that policy will respond to this liability claim? A, coverage wood dwelling. B, coverage B, other structures. C, coverage E, personal liability. D, coverage F, medical payments to others. Correct answer. C, coverage E, personal liability. Explanation. Coverage E, personal liability in a homeowner's insurance policy covers legal liability arising from bodily injury or property damage to others for which the insured is responsible. This includes incidents that occur on the insured property, such as slip and fall accidents on the driveway. Coverage is for the dwelling itself, coverage B for other structures, and coverage F for medical payments to others regardless of fault. Question 78. Ethics in insurance. Which of the following actions by an insurance agent in Connecticut is considered an ethical practice when handling client premiums? A, using client premiums for personal investments to earn additional income. B, depositing client premiums into the agency's trust account promptly. C, delaying premium payments to maximize interest earnings. D, charging clients higher premiums without disclosing the reasons. Correct answer. B, depositing client premiums into the agency's trust account promptly. Explanation. In Connecticut, insurance agents are required to handle client premiums ethically and responsibly. This includes promptly depositing client premiums into the agency's trust account and ensuring they are used solely for their intended purpose of funding insurance coverage. Using premiums for personal investments, delaying payments, or charging higher premiums without disclosure would violate ethical standards and regulatory requirements. Question 79. Personal umbrella policy. Mr. Johnson has a personal umbrella policy in Connecticut with a coverage limit of $1 million. He is involved in a car accident where he is found liable for $750,000 in damages, and his underlying auto insurance policy covers $250,000. How much will Mr. Johnson's umbrella policy pay? A. $250,000. B. $500,000. C. $750,000. D. $1 million. Correct answer B. $500,000. Explanation. The personal umbrella policy will pay the amount that exceeds the limits of the underlying auto insurance policy up to the limit of the umbrella policy. In this case, since the auto insurance policy covers $250,000, the umbrella policy will pay the remaining $500,000, $750,000. $250,000 all equals $500,000. Question 80. Flood insurance. MS. Adams owns a home in a flood-prone area of Connecticut and purchases flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP. Which of the following is true regarding the coverage for her personal belongings? A. Personal property coverage is included in all NFIP policies without additional premiums. B. Personal property coverage is limited to $100,000 under NFIP policies. C. Personal property coverage under NFIP policies excludes coverage for electronics. D. Personal property coverage under NFIP policies is subject to a separate deductible. Correct answer D. Personal property coverage under NFIP policies is subject to a separate deductible. Explanation. Personal property coverage under NFIP policies is subject to a separate deductible from the one that applies to the building coverage. The deductible amount can vary depending on the policy and the chosen coverage limits. NFIP policies do not automatically include personal property coverage. It must be purchased separately and is subject to specific limits and deductibles. Question 81. Health insurance overview in Connecticut. Which type of health insurance plan is required to cover essential health benefits under the Affordable Care Act? A. Preferred provider organizations, PPOS. B. High deductible health pauschia. C. Health maintenance organizations, HMOS. D. Catastrophic health insurance plans. Correct answer C. Health maintenance organizations, HMOS. Explanation. Health maintenance organizations, HMOS, are required under the ACA to cover essential health benefits, which include a set of health care services that must be covered by plans in the individual and small group markets. These benefits ensure that individuals have access to necessary medical services, such as preventive care, maternity and newborn care, mental health services, and prescription drugs. Question 82. Insurance regulation. Which entity in Connecticut is responsible for overseeing the regulation of insurance rates and forms? A. Connecticut Insurance Department. B. National Association of Insurance Commissioners, NAIC. C. Connecticut General Assembly. D. Office of the Attorney General. Correct answer A. Connecticut Insurance Department. Explanation. The Connecticut Insurance Department is responsible for regulating insurance rates and forms within the state. This includes reviewing and approving insurance policy forms, rates, and related documents to ensure compliance with state laws and consumer protection standards. The NAIC develops model laws and regulations, while the Connecticut General Assembly enacts state laws, and the Office of the Attorney General may handle legal matters related to insurance. Question 83. Ethics in insurance. Which of the following actions by an insurance agent in Connecticut is considered a violation of ethical standards? A. Recommending a policy that provides inadequate coverage based on the client's needs. B. Providing accurate and truthful information about policy terms and conditions. C. Disclosing potential conflicts of interest to clients. D. Offering discounts to clients for renewing their policies on time. Correct answer A. Recommending a policy that provides inadequate coverage based on the client's needs. Explanation. In Connecticut, insurance agents are required to recommend policies that meet the client's needs and provide adequate coverage. Recommending a policy that does not adequately cover the client's risks or needs would be considered a violation of ethical standards and could lead to regulatory scrutiny. Providing accurate information, disclosing conflicts of interest, and offering discounts for timely renewals are ethical practices that benefit clients. Question 84. Personal auto policy PAP. Mr. Anderson has a personal auto policy PAP in Connecticut that includes liability coverage, Part A, medical payments coverage, Part B, uninsured motorist coverage, Part C, and collision coverage. Part D, while driving, he swerves to avoid hitting a deer and crashes into a guardrail, damaging his vehicle, which coverage part of his policy would apply in this situation. A, liability coverage, Part A. B, medical payments coverage, Part B. C, uninsured motorist coverage, Part C. D, collision coverage, Part D. Correct answer, D, collision coverage. Part D. Explanation, collision coverage. Part D. Under personal auto policy, PAP covers damage to Mr. Anderson's vehicle resulting from a collision, whether with another vehicle or an object like a guardrail. Liability coverage. Part A covers damages to third parties. Medical payments coverage. Part B covers medical expenses for Mr. Anderson and his passengers, and uninsured motorist coverage. Part C would apply if another uninsured driver caused the accident. Question 85. Homeowners insurance MS. Carter owns a condominium in Connecticut and has a HOS6 homeowners insurance policy. A fire in a neighboring unit damages her personal property, including furniture and electronics, which coverage part of her policy will respond to this loss. A, coverage A, dwelling. B, coverage B, other structures. C, coverage C, personal property. D, coverage D, loss of use. Correct answer, C, coverage C, personal property. Explanation, coverage C, personal property in a HOS6 policy covers personal belongings of the insured within a condominium unit, including furniture and electronics, against perils like fire. Coverage A applies to the physical structure of the condominium unit itself, coverage B to other structures on the property not owned by the insured, and coverage D to additional living expenses if the unit becomes uninhabitable. Question 86. Ethics in insurance. Which ethical principle requires insurance agents in Connecticut to act with fairness, honesty, and integrity in their dealings with clients and the public? A, principle of indemnity. B, principle of utmost good faith. C, principle of proximate cause. D, principle of fiduciary responsibility. Correct answer, B, principle of utmost good faith. Explanation, the principle of utmost good faith requires insurance agents and policyholders to act honestly and fairly in their dealings with each other. This principle ensures transparency and trust in insurance transactions, encouraging full disclosure of relevant information and preventing fraud or misrepresentation. The other principles listed, indemnity, proximate cause, and fiduciary responsibility, also guide insurance practices but do not specifically address ethical conduct. Question 87. Personal liability insurance. Mr. Edwards has personal liability insurance as part of his homeowner's insurance policy in Connecticut. If a visitor slips and falls on his icy driveway during a winter storm, which coverage part of his policy will respond to this liability claim? A, coverage was welling. B, coverage C, personal property. C, coverage E, personal liability. D, coverage F, medical payments to others. Correct answer, C, coverage E, personal liability. Explanation, coverage E, personal liability in a homeowner's insurance policy covers legal liability arising from bodily injury or property damage to others for which the insured is responsible. This includes incidents that occur on the insured property, such as slip and fall accidents on an icy driveway. Coverage goes for the dwelling structure, coverage C for personal property, and coverage F for medical payments to others, regardless of fault. Question 88. Health insurance overview in Connecticut. Which type of health insurance plan allows members to choose any doctor or specialist without a referral? A, health maintenance organization, ATMO. B, preferred provider organization, PPO. C, exclusive provider organization, EPO. D, point of service POS plan. Correct answer, B, preferred provider organization, PPO. Explanation, A preferred provider organization (PPO) allows members to choose any doctor or specialist without a referral, both inside and outside the PPO network. PPO plans offer flexibility in provider choice and typically do not require a primary care physician or referrals for specialist care, unlike HMOS, EPOS, or POS plans which may have network restrictions or referral requirements. Question 89. Dwelling Policy DP. Mr. Garcia owns a rental property in Connecticut. Insured under E3 policy, a windstorm damages the roof of his rental house, causing water damage to the interior, which coverage part of his policy will respond to the repair costs. A. Coverage A. Dwelling. B. Coverage B. Other structures. C. Coverage C. Personal property. D. Coverage D. Fair rental value. Correct answer A. Coverage with dwelling. Explanation. Coverage with dwelling in a dwelling policy (DP) covers the main structure of the rental property, including damage to the roof and interior due to covered perils like windstorms. Coverage B applies to other structures on the property not attached to the main dwelling. Coverage C to personal property owned by the insured within the rental unit, and coverage D to loss of rental income if the property becomes uninhabitable. Question 90. Flood insurance MS. Roberts owns a commercial building in a flood-prone area of Connecticut and purchases flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program (NFIP). What is the purpose of the increased cost of compliance Act coverage provided by NFIP policies? A. To cover business interruption losses due to flooding. B. To provide additional coverage for lost rental income. C. To reimburse expenses for compliance with local floodplain regulations. D. To cover the replacement cost of damaged building materials. Correct answer. C. To reimburse expenses for compliance with local floodplain regulations. Explanation. Increased cost of compliance Act coverage under NFIP policies helps cover the cost of complying with local floodplain management regulations or ordinances. This includes expenses for elevating, relocating, demolishing, or otherwise modifying the insured building to reduce future flood damage risks as required by local floodplain regulations. ICC coverage is in addition to the building and personal property coverage provided by NFIP policies.